Arsenal have scored the most goals from corners in the Premier League this season, and they're not finished yet. I'm Josh Hall. Welcome to the For Arsenal. As always, I'm joined by Charlie Wyett, but we're also joined by someone from our brother podcast, the Chelsea Blueprint, Dan King. Welcome along, Dan. Welcome to the premier show from Sun Sport, the one from the league leaders.
Is this as boring as Arsenal?
Well, I wouldn't say so. I think we might have a little bit more excitement than some of the performances we've seen from Arsenal this season. That's a nice segue. Arsenal do win that game. There's been a lot of complaints about it being boring. Let's start off with you, Charlie. From the Arsenal perspective, they got the 3 points. That's the most important thing, but it wasn't the most exciting game in the world.
No, but that's been the story of the season at the Emirates. I actually thought it was one of the better games because Chelsea actually had a go, unlike other sides. So I actually thought it was okay. But look, there's a fair bit of hate at Arsenal at the moment amongst neutral supporters. And, are they exciting? No. Are they effective? Yes. Did they play better football 3 years ago? Definitely yes, because some of the football under Arteta then was outstanding. It's functional now, isn't it? And I think the fact that so many goals are coming from set pieces, I think it's 21 in the Premier League this season, 32 in all comps, is a lot. But if it's effective and it wins them the title or gets them 2 trophies or maybe even 4, then no Arsenal fans will be moaning, but I think a lot of other supporters are having the good old...
They won't be moaning, they'll be unbearable. That's what they'll be.
Well, you said there it's functional, it's effective. Arsenal won the game 2-1. They scored both their goals from corners. They also scored Chelsea's goal from a corner. From that Chelsea perspective, when you're facing a club like Arsenal, I'm interested to know, do you think that other clubs look at Arsenal and think maybe the only way to beat them is to try and reduce them down to these situations? But even when they do that, Arsenal are still so strong.
Yeah, and I think probably in the ratings I gave to Chelsea players, I was a little bit harsh because, as Charlie says, they stopped Arsenal from creating much, if anything, from open play. And I think Arsenal have become used to that over the years. And fair play to Arteta and Nicholas Yeover, the man with the lovely mural. They found a way. All right, when we can't play through teams, as sometimes happened to Wenger's teams in the past, what are we going to do? And this is the way football has gone. And in many ways, you can't blame when the point is to win football matches. And if football has gone the way it has, and playing the way Arsenal were was not winning football matches, you've got to find a way of doing it. And the way Arteta's found is get lots of very big lads. And if we can't play through them, we will bully them at set pieces and score that. And I think it's a perfectly legitimate tactic. And football goes in cycles, and people will find ways of stopping it, or maybe the referees will start, applying some of the laws of the game a bit more
aggressively,
a bit more consistently. But at this stage of the season, when you've not won the league for a long time, and the same applied to Liverpool. I think Arsenal fans are going through a similar thing to what Liverpool fans were doing last season, albeit Liverpool never really got people this close behind them. So they know they're the best team in the country. They know the title is there for the taking. But it's been so long since they've won it that they get nervous and the players get nervous. And we saw it again, even against 10 men yesterday. Arsenal were retreating, and they needed that heart-stopping, as Arteta said, save from Raya at the end. But that's the thing with Arsenal. They've got really good players in all positions, and when his moment came, Raya yesterday, he rose to it and prevented the equaliser.
I think also with Arsenal, I think some of the criticism they're getting from scoring from set pieces is harsh. Does wind me up is when they're defending set pieces, what they're getting away with. That's where they're doing the real grappling.
Lot grappling, yeah.
And I hate that. We're not seeing it in the Champions League. We're not seeing it in the Europa League. We're not seeing it in international football. We're not actually even seeing it in the EFL much. Well, obviously, it's a more physical league, but I was at a Championship game Saturday and there was a bit of it, but nothing like what we're seeing when Arsenal are defending corners and free kicks. They're not the only ones, as Arteta pointed out yesterday. And other teams are doing it as well, but I still think Arsenal do the most wrestling when they're defending. Equally, when they're attacking their own corners, there's a bit of it, but it's not that much.
No, I mean, yesterday, I don't think Arsenal had to do anything too elaborate. It wasn't like 2, 4, 6 hut beam. It wasn't like a really complicated move. The first one was a deep ball to the back post where they haven't fired the man, headed back across, goal. Thank you very much. And the second one is again the I don't think the central defence covered themselves in glory for Chelsea from that second one. But really, in the end, Sanchez doesn't know whether to stick or twist and just gets caught in two minds and just sort of falls over. In fact, actually, if he didn't sort of fall over without being touched, I think he's got a lot better chance of stopping that, because he wasn't the greatest header in the world, even from close range from Timber. But they made it easy. These weren't the most they weren't as elaborate as some of the corner routines we've seen from Arsenal this season. They're pretty basic goals.
If anything, I think Chelsea were the ones that from set pieces almost had a tactic. They were chipping at that front post every time they had one, putting on that front post, making Raya make a decision whether to come out, and that's then being how they got their goal as well. So I think even Chelsea were the ones that had more of a sort of a defined set piece that they were going to go into that game with. I think the important thing is you mentioned just a moment ago when you were talking about it, Dan, that you said that this is the way the game's gone. There's now been more set piece goals in the same amount in this Premier League season as there was last season, and there's still so much more football to play. So it's not just Arsenal, like you say. Yeah. Everyone is doing it. It just seems that Arsenal are the most effective at doing it. That still hasn't stopped there being some pretty strong criticism. I've got a quote here. Chris Sutton said, "Set piece again for Arsenal. I think they're going to win it. If they get over the line, they will be the ugliest Premier League winning team in history. The performance wasn't there."
I don't think any team with the beautiful Ricardo Calafiori could ever be called the ugliest.
Well, absolutely not. I think there's a lot of people that are good looking in that team as well. You see Declan Rice's lovely long locks now. All of them are good. Certainly you can't call them ugly. But I suppose the football hasn't looked that exciting when they do have the ball at their feet. We were speaking just before we started recording. 22-23, Arsenal were playing far more exciting football, weren't they? They felt like a team that were young and they had less fear, whereas now they seem like it's sort of just doing the basics right and making sure they don't lose games. But I guess the argument you could make for the reason they've shifted that way is that they played that football for 3 years. They didn't win a league title. This year they're edging closer towards doing it. Maybe this is just the way to do it.
This is the way Arteta's decided to, the way he's managing the team. And he wants players to be functional. And as we've seen this season, when a player's not followed his orders, like Eze at Aston Villa, got taken off at half time. And when we've seen with Madueke, Easton Waneri, when they've lost the ball or not worked hard enough, they've just not. There's been no place for them. That's why I think Eze in general has struggled to fit in, because Arteta's priority is just to work hard and be solid, and that's the way Arsenal are. And we mustn't rewrite history too much, because look, they're not exactly the Harlem Globetrotters to watch, are they? But equally, Chelsea weren't always when they won the league with their power. And neither were Manchester United. And even going back to the 1970s, the criticism Liverpool used to get, and it was warranted. Obviously, that was when you had before the back pass rule, where you could just pass back to the goalkeeper, he could pick it up. And Liverpool used to get all sorts of criticism. Well, no Liverpool fans care now, looking at how incredible their record was. So I don't think Arsenal fans generally worry too much about the criticism, and
I think they like it. I think it just feeds in, and not being liked is a sign of people recognising you're good at something. If they were mid-table and scoring lots of goals,
no one would care.
Set pieces, no one would care. And in the annals of football history, when it comes to 25-26, it's not going to say Arsenal with them with a little asterisk. By the way, they scored loads of goals from set pieces. No. It might have an asterisk if the Man City verdict comes in and they're found guilty and Man City have the points taken off. That's when they'll have an asterisk. But no one's going to care. You say, you look back on Man United's period of dominance, Liverpool's period of dominance, and even Manchester City's. No one's going in 50 years' time is going to remember how it was done. They're just going to know that it was done.
Leicester's the best example. I mean, Leicester was the brilliant story.
Yeah. But
were they brilliant to watch? Well, Tottenham were the best team to watch that season. Mm-hmm. They played great football. Obviously, they didn't finish in second. But Leicester was a great story. But they weren't just superb to watch.
Yeah.
And equally, I think Arsenal, if they can win the title, again, we'll probably see that team evolve a bit under Arteta and their style change a little bit. But they just basically need to win. They just basically need to win at Manchester City on April the 18th. Ultimately, I think that's what it's going to come down to.
Or not lose.
Even just a 0-0 draw will do it. We'll keep them 2 points ahead, won't it? And they had a 0-0 draw against City plenty of times before. They'll have a 0-0 draw this season. I think interesting, just that point you're making as well about the different teams, is that Chelsea fans know better than anyone. Jose Mourinho won them league titles based off defensive solidity, didn't he? On not conceding goals, and it's just the way it's developed. I think just to touch one last time on set pieces, let's look at at one specific set piece, was Declan Rice quite lucky to not give away a penalty for that? He was sort of hugging João Pedro, and he also then sort of elbowed the ball.
Well, the short answer is yes, and Charlie will explain why in detail.
Yeah, when it was a double penalty. I mean, when it happened, we sort of in communication with sort of Stockley Park, and they're sort of insisting that they're admitting that obviously his forearm touched the ball, but they're saying that was because he was in a challenge, but he was fouling, wasn't he?
He was fouling Gerard Hato.
Yeah. Hato was being mauled, so that should have been a penalty for that. But that's where sort of teams are getting away with, particularly Arsenal. But then that's a penalty all day long. So actually, it's sort of karma, the fact that Chelsea scored directly, obviously.
Yeah, because Ryan makes the amazing save, then from the next corner,
it's a goal.
Yeah.
So it was deserved. I thought Chelsea deserved a bit of credit. I thought the second half they did quite well. Arsenal went off the boil. Obviously, they were helped by stupid, second yellow by Neto, but also even before that, Arsenal. Let's not forget that yellow card came from a breakaway with Martinelli, which came on the back of Rice sort of delivering a really weird, sort of attempted spectacular own goal. It seemed, wasn't it? But
there's a Lee Dixon guy.
Yeah, exactly. So Arsenal weren't totally at it. And again, Chelsea could have won right at the end. Sorry, could have got the draw right at the end, couldn't they? So solid win. I think Chelsea deserve a bit of credit because they were one of the better teams in terms of actually having a go at Arsenal, who we've seen in the Premier League. And Arsenal, it's been a good week on the back of the Wolves draw, beat Tottenham, beat Chelsea, and they should win at Brighton. And that's an okay reaction from a really bad performance of Molineux.
You certainly feel like Chelsea were impressive in that second half. I personally wasn't too impressed with in the first half. I thought they were very loose in Arsenal's final third. I thought almost every time they got to a dangerous position, they just sort of passed it to Arsenal. But the second half, especially, I mean, and if it wasn't for David Raya, I think they certainly would have gotten something out of that game. I thought Chelsea looked, like you say, one of the stronger teams that have come to the Emirates this season. Is there now a bit of a mental thing with Chelsea, though, where that is now 11 games unbeaten, Arsenal against Chelsea? Mm-hmm. There's almost a mental block to get over. Not only that, but Liam Rossinier has now been in charge of Chelsea for, I think, is it 13 games?
13 games.
And he's lost 3 of them, and they were all to Arsenal.
All been to Arsenal. And I think the way Rossinier would look at that, and I think Chelsea fans, if they calmed down, it would just be, you've lost 3 times to the team, which is, at the moment, the stats are telling us the best in England and probably the best in Europe. So there's no shame in that. And I think of the 3 performances, in many ways, this one was the best of the 3. I think particularly in the second half, where I thought they were disappointing first half, but I thought that Enzo Fernandez at least started the second half better. He forced a save out of Raya. I think there was another set piece where if João Pedro, I think, steers that header even half a foot, even Magic David Raya is not stopping that, and then suddenly the complexion of the game is a lot different. I think, as I said, I think maybe I was a bit harsh on Chelsea because I think they stopped Arsenal from creating anything. They were very disciplined in their shape. I thought Hato did well against Saka, but then once I can't remember who it was, he fouled. He picked up a yellow card, and then I think he needed to come off, and that's why Malaga came on. And by that point anyway, Chelsea were chasing the game and trying to win it. And I think, as I said, the nerves kick in when when you're only 1 goal ahead. You don't know, even against 10 men, are we gonna push hard? And then the last 5 minutes they bring on the laps, so they got 2 up front, and they bring on Garnacho, and they've got the pace. So you don't want to push on, so you'll. Again, it's hard, but one of my biggest takeaways was because of the whole, from a Chelsea point of view, we're talking about the same old thing as conceding set pieces and
disciplinary records.
Disciplinary records, and it was the emotional maturity of the Arsenal team. Arteta said afterwards, it was a proper London derby, and there was plenty of there was no quarter Arsenal given. There was some good challenges going in. It wasn't dirty, but it was Chelsea who were picking up silly yellow cards for dissent. Arsenal, I'm not even sure if they had a player booked. So they did. There weren't many players booked, and they just seemed to have a bit more calmness about them than Chelsea did. And you can't. As you say, we were joking earlier, but Chelsea have now got almost a complete team. So it's not like one player. It's not like having. I don't think who the players from the past used. Patrick Vieira got lots and lots of
Granit Xhaka.
Granit Xhaka. It's not like. But there are nine different Chelsea players. Yeah, so it's not one person who's a hothead. It just seems to be a general lack of emotional control in important moments, whereas Arsenal just about seem to have.
Well, Arsenal have learnt from the last season, because obviously they had 6 reds, so they had no red cards this season. And now when the Arsenal players haven't been on the booking, Arteta's learned from previous seasons, got them off the pitch. So he's learnt there. He's obviously still sort of overplaying some players, and I still think they're probably being overtrained as well, which is why the injuries keep coming up. More potential injuries yesterday was a bit of a worry. Obviously, we'll find out on Tuesday. We won't find out on Tuesday because Mikel Arteta never really said anything. but Zubamendi was limping at the end. Raya sort of injured himself while sort of dealing with the Declan Rice back pass. Declan Rice asked to come off. So, there was a few worries there. And I imagine we won't see an unchanged team for Brighton. Obviously, big opportunity to rest players at Mansfield. I want to see a totally different team. Arsenal are not going to lose that game at Mansfield. Famous last words. Totally change it and win that.
Yeah, the contrast between Arsenal's draw and Chelsea, especially if Chelsea don't get a result at Aston Villa, the pressure going into that game against Wrexham, who are pushing for a playoff place in the Championship, compared to going to Mansfield, it's completely different. You should be able to play the entirely different 11, really, Arsenal, and come away with a result. Whereas Chelsea will not be able to afford to do that.
Yeah, you imagine there's going to be mass rotation in that, and also Arsenal have got the players that they can afford to do that. It was nice to see Christian Norgard play some minutes. We've not seen much of him at all for Arsenal this season. Some positives as well at the back of it. I don't want to get too stuck on it, but it was St Totteringham's day before the game even kicked off. Arsenal widening that gap. We spoke a lot about Spurs last week about them maybe being relegated, so we won't talk about it too much. But in terms of the title race as well, it's another show of mental strength from Arsenal that they are seemingly being able to deal with that pressure of playing after Man City better than they were earlier in the season.
It can be a difficult thing, and the players will obviously, some of them would have maybe watched the game, although probably a lot of them wouldn't have bothered, but they've been aware there would have been pressure. It was a difficult game yesterday, and they came through it. So Arsenal, you would expect them to have learned from the fact that they finished second for the last 3 years. They will definitely have learnt from that. So I think mentally they're strong. Obviously, not all the performances have been great. It could still be a few bumps in the road, but they've turned a negative from Wolves, and it was a negative because they were awful and they didn't deserve to win that game really. Into two really, really good wins, and I think they'll go to Brighton, bit of confidence, make a few changes, and they'll be okay.
Before we look ahead to Brighton, I want to ask you something, Dan. You're here from the other side, from the blue side of London, and I want to ask you, who do you think is going to win the Premier League title? From what you saw of Arsenal, do you think that they're going to be able to get over the line?
Yeah, I just think they're too hard to beat, and I think there are times when Manchester City aren't, and Manchester City are not the team who used to be able to string together sort of 12, 13, 14, 15 games in a row winning, and I think they're going to need to do that between now and the end of the season, because I think Arsenal will, as Charlie said, there will be slip-ups, there are games, but I think we may even have a scenario where Arsenal lose at the Etihad, but that by then it's not nearly so costly. Obviously, they'll still be close enough that it'll lead to some nervous moments. But I think Arsenal they've got that kind of momentum about them. I think they are man for man clearly the best team in the league, and it is more of them. It's a mental battle in the sense of getting over previous disappointments, and it is a physical battle to some extent because of tiredness. And when you're going for a quadruple, then the number of games you're playing can take a toll. And it'd be interesting to see, given where they are, with a favourable draw in the FA Cup, in the Carabao Cup final, and decent side of the draw in the Champions League, they could absolutely do what Liverpool did and get go into the final weeks of the season having won both cup competitions, be in the final of the Champions League, and go into the final day of the Premier League with a chance of doing. Now Liverpool only came away with, I think they came away with one in the end, didn't they? When they were on that quad run, and I think
they FA Cup and the Carabao Cup.
They did in 22,
yes,
and in 24 they're going for whatever it was. I think the only danger is that because the games become higher stakes as you go through the knockout competitions, and the opportunity to rest is not so much there. That's when the squad depth will really come into play. But I think they are as well equipped, given the relative strength of the Premier League and the challenges in Europe. They are as well equipped as Liverpool were then to perhaps do it. And God help us all who aren't Arsenal fans if they do.
Well, they certainly might. And that tiredness is something that will be interesting. Like you say, Mansfield is a great opportunity to rest players, but before that, they've got to go to Brighton. They've got to beat Brighton in midweek, and it comes pretty soon after. Would you be expecting some rotation there, Charlie? I think Arsenal fans would like to see some players rotate.
Well, just from what I've said, there's clearly potential issue with Zubimendi and Rice. So, there's absolutely no chance they're both going to start. I'll be really surprised. And maybe could be a first Premier League start for Norgard, who's obviously hugely frustrated, and it probably wouldn't surprise me if we see him leave in the summer. Even though he's never going to expect to play all the time, but I think you'd hope to have been involved a little bit more. And he's actually done all right when he's played, hasn't he?
He's
when he was a defender in the Champions League away. So we'll see some changes there. He'll obviously stick with Gyökeres, Saka. Maybe make it. I mean, I thought Trossard was abysmal yesterday. Worst performance of the season. Really poor, and he's had a good season.
Yeah.
So I think Martinelli will probably start.
What about Kai Havertz? He obviously came on, threw himself around for 20 minutes or so. Get him back in the team.
Potentially, unfortunately, having played so well against Tottenham, it was the performance we've seen from Eze, apart from playing Tottenham and Crystal Palace, and that was just he obviously had one chance, but I think maybe Havertz in for Eze. I think there'll probably be the changes. So he'll make a couple, and then say for Saturday, give everyone a game.
Get Max Dalman on, Marty Salmon. Okay, I'll play up front.
Miles, the great.
Oh no, he won't get a game.
I
think Josh has got a better chance of playing for Miles.
Wow.
Yeah. Arteta's not having Miles Lewis Skelly now, unfortunately.
I wish I'd known this before I spent money on it in my fantasy league. I've got rid of him now.
He's just nowhere in Arteta's plans, and that's another example of maybe a player that's just not quite fitted into how he wanted to play this year, even though he did really well last year. So it'll be another question mark over his short-term future in the summer. Lewis Skelly, there's absolutely no chance Arsenal would sell him, but it'd be interesting to see if they're open to a few Premier League loans for him next season.
Manchester City are playing at the same time as Arsenal on Wednesday. It's not often that's happened. You don't often find themselves both playing at 3 o'clock, but obviously when it's a midweek game, that happens. They're playing Nottingham Forest. You'd expect them to win that game. They can obviously keep putting pressure on Arsenal whenever they play, and they look like they're playing more freer than they were earlier in the season. But I came to it earlier, and I just want to bring it back to slightly. Arsenal had a period where they dropped points in, I think it was 6 games in a row, or 4 games in a row where they played after Manchester City. This was a sign of another game where they played after. Spurs, they did it. Chelsea, they've now done it, and they picked up those points. How important is it before that Carabao Cup final that they just keep that mental edge of being able to respond and being able to block out that noise that's coming and that pressure that is on this team to finally perform?
I think you're always looking to lay down markers ahead of cup finals when you know that they're coming. But as you say, I think they've proved over with the last 2 fixtures that they are coping better with that pressure. And there are all sorts of reasons why the Wolves game, the Wolves result happens, and those other results happen. But I think overall they've got easily enough quality to win the title and to keep. I mean, it's always said to be the pressure on Arsenal, and of course it is, with the amount of time since they've won the title. But there's also pressure on Manchester City because they've had such a reign of dominance, and some of the players at Man City may be thinking, well, no, we need to keep winning to keep Pep here and want to be manager. Or they might be thinking, actually, if we do win, maybe he'll just go out
On a high.
They've got that uncertainty, and they're playing under the uncertainty of the whole case as well. So there's pressure on them as well. And I think we don't know yet how badly injured Haaland is, and even if Haaland comes back for against Forest, or let's say at the weekend, doesn't leave him much time before the Carabao Cup final. So I think it is opportunity in these sort of games to for that particular game to lay down a marker for it, and I think we've seen it with lots of different teams, but you particularly remember Mourinho's Chelsea, the winning that first trophy, albeit the lesser of the four within the quad, it can be a real springboard, and it was for Pep as well at City.
Yeah. I think just quickly, just going back to City, they'll obviously beat Nottingham Forest. I think Nottingham Forest are probably going to go down. But even Arsenal and City next couple of weeks, they will slip up. One of them will slip up, whether it's in the Champions League. There's so many games now. The quadruple, we obviously keep talking about it because it's good fun. It is pretty much impossible. Arsenal are not going to win the quadruple, but equally, City could slip up. That's the other thing, isn't it? With the Champions League draw too, is that City's path to get through the competition is a lot. It's a lot tougher. It's not not that because I'm sure Mikel Arteta would love to win both, and thinks he can win both the Premier League and the Champions League. But if you're playing Bodo Glimt or Sporting Lisbon in the quarterfinals, having presumably dispatched Leverkusen, who are 6th or 7th in the Bundesliga at the moment, where City they've got to be Real Madrid.
Yeah, they've got to play those games in quick succession. I would love to hear you both tell me how much it's going to be difficult for City and how easy it's going to be for Arsenal and how they're going to cruise to the quadruple, but we are out of time. We will be back on Thursday with another episode to react to the game against Brighton. Thank you very much, Chai, for joining us, and thank you, Dan, for coming on to Emery territory. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.